My name is Madison. I'm 28 years old, and I'm the first doctor my family has ever produced. For most of my life, I believed that one single moment would finally change how they saw me. I imagined a packed auditorium, my name echoing through the speakers, and my parents sitting in the front row, crying, clapping, standing before anyone else. I thought 7 years of exhaustion, debt, sacrifice, and survival would make me undeniable. I was wrong. My mother didn't forget my graduation. She made a choice. She chose my brother's backyard barbecue over watching me earn my doctorate. And my father, he told me over the phone, "Don't be dramatic, it's just a ceremony." That sentence didn't hurt because it was new. It hurt because it was familiar. That morning didn't end in tears or screaming. It ended in something much quieter and far more dangerous. I changed my name. I walked away. And the fallout turned my parents into the villains of a story they never expected to star in. They say I tore the family apart. But when they laughed over grilled meat while I crossed that stage alone, they didn't care they were breaking me. Before I tell you exactly what my father said on that call, and how leaving, legally erasing my last name, and exposing the truth detonated my family, tell me this. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I want to know how far a story about choosing yourself over blood can travel. Graduation morning, I woke up before my alarm. My heart was pounding like it had something to prove. For a moment, I stayed still, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet pretend my life made sense. Then it hit me. This was the day. 7 years of all-nighters, skipped holidays, caffeine dinners, panic attacks before exams, and questioning whether I was ruining my life. All of it was supposed to lead here. Today, someone would say Dr. Madison Carter into a microphone. I'd rehearsed that moment in my head so many times it felt real already. In every version, my parents were there. My mom blotting her mascara. My dad holding his phone too close, cutting off half my cap. Both of them standing, clapping harder than anyone. Even my brother pretending not to care but secretly proud. That image carried me through nights I thought I'd quit. I told myself, when it really matters, they'll show up. I needed to believe that. I moved slowly, like the morning was sacred. Shower, pressed shirt. The black gown that felt unreal in my hands. I kept smoothing wrinkles that weren't there, like I could iron out years of being overlooked. I pinned my cap, fixed the tassel, and stood in front of the mirror longer than necessary, trying to see myself the way I hoped they would. The first doctor in the family. Proof I mattered. I'd even decorated the top of my cap in careful white letters. First doctor in the family. That morning, it didn't feel proud anymore. It felt like a question. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. Relief rushed through me so fast I almost laughed. Of course, they were calling to say they were on the road, complaining about parking. I answered, already smiling. "Hey, are you guys close? If you left early, you'll get good seats." She didn't let me finish. "Sweetie, listen," she said, too cheerful, too light. "We mixed up the dates." My brain froze. "What?" "Your brother's barbecue is today," she rushed on. "We already invited everyone. Your dad been prepping since yesterday. Clients are coming. We can't cancel, it would look bad." I stared at the wall. "So you're not coming to my graduation?" Silence. Then that familiar sigh, the one that meant I was inconvenient. "We'll make it up to you," she said. "Dinner next week, pictures with your diploma, we'll post them, same thing." My fingers tightened around the phone. "It's not the same, this is the one day you were supposed to be there." I heard shuffling, then my dad's voice took over. "Madison, don't start, we're proud of you." "But it's just a ceremony." Then the line that split something in me clean in half. "Don't be dramatic." I said okay and hung up before I broke. The cap and gown waited behind me like witnesses. I thought about staying home, letting the day disappear. But I knew what they'd say if I did, that I was emotional, unstable, so I went. I drove alone, parked between minivans covered in congratulations written in soap. Families poured out with balloons and flowers. I walked inside by myself. The auditorium buzzed with joy. When I found my seat, the chairs beside me were marked reserved, my parents' names. I didn't remove the signs. When we were told to turn and wave to our families, arms shot up everywhere. Phones flashed. I turned and saw strangers where my parents should have been. I raised my hand halfway, then dropped it. No one noticed. My phone buzzed as we lined up. A photo from my brother, the barbecue, smoke rising, my parents laughing in the background. Caption, "Wish you were here, fire." The timestamp matched the moment my row stood to walk. When they called my name, Dr. Madison Carter, I smiled through the lights, shook hands, accepted my diploma. Somewhere, a camera searched the crowd for my cheering section. It found none. Afterward, families reunited in a blur of hugs. I stood off to the side, pretending to scroll. A woman stopped and asked if I wanted a photo with my family. "It's just me," I said. Her face softened. "Their loss," she said quietly, and took my picture anyway. That night I posted it. No filter, just the truth. First doctor in the family. They chose a barbecue. Silence followed. Alone in my apartment, I finally understood. They hadn't forgotten. They'd chosen. I typed one message into the family chat, then watched excuses roll in. No apology, just drama. When the tears stopped, something else took over. Clarity. I searched how to legally change my name. I chose my grandmother's maiden name, the only person who ever showed up. Filing the paperwork felt like closing a door I'd held open my whole life. When my brother called yelling, I corrected him. "It's Murphy now." When my parents accused me of humiliation, I told them the truth. "You documented your priorities, I just stopped hiding them." I moved cities, started over, introduced myself as Dr. Madison Murphy before the ink was dry, and for the first time, the name felt earned. So here's the question. If your family skipped the biggest moment of your life and told you not to be dramatic, would you stay and keep begging for air? Or would you do what I did and finally choose yourself? Her next question changed everything. Ava looked at me, not like a supervisor or a colleague, but like someone who had finally found the missing piece of a pattern. "So what did you do after?" she asked quietly. I hesitated. Not because I was ashamed, but because saying it out loud made it real in a way paperwork never could. "I stopped waiting," I said. "I stopped hoping they'd turn into different people." She nodded slowly. Like that answer confirmed something she already suspected. "That's usually the moment people start healing," she said. "Not when the family apologizes, when the fantasy dies." Work became my anchor. The clinic was underfunded and overwhelmed. Patients came in carrying generational wounds they didn't have language for yet. Mothers who minimized their children's pain. Fathers who dismissed emotions as weakness. Adult children who still believed love was something you earned by being useful, impressive, quiet. I listened to their stories and felt pieces of my own reflected back at me. Every session sharpened something inside me. I wasn't just treating patients. I was rewriting myself. Weeks passed, then months. The court order arrived in a plain envelope on an unremarkable Tuesday. Legal name change approved. Madison Murphy. I read it twice. Then a third time. No fireworks, no choir. Just a clean line separating who I had been from who I was allowed to be now. I updated my license, my credentials, my email signature. Each change felt like tightening a boundary that should have existed years ago. That's when my parents finally reacted. Not emotionally, strategically, my mother called first. Her voice was tight, controlled. "You embarrassed us," she said, skipping hello. "People are asking questions." I pictured the Facebook album, the comments, the whispers. "Good," I said, silence stretched. "You didn't have to make it public," she snapped. I laughed then, not kindly. "You made your choice public the moment you smiled for those photos," I said. "I just stopped lying about it." She tried a different angle. "Tears, we did our best." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just said, "Your best wasn't enough for me, and I'm done pretending it was." My father sent one message, one sentence. "You're tearing this family apart." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "No," I typed. "I stopped holding it together by myself." After that, the silence returned, but it felt different. It wasn't abandonment anymore. It was peace. No waiting for missed calls. No rehearsing conversations in my head. No wondering if this achievement would finally be the one that earned me a seat. I had my own table now. Ava noticed the change before I did. "You're lighter," she said one night as we locked up the clinic. "Sharper too," I smiled. "I think I finally stopped auditioning." She raised an eyebrow. "For who?" I answered without hesitation. "For people who were never in the audience." The job offer that followed came unexpectedly. A private practice expanding into trauma-informed family therapy. Better pay, more autonomy. When they asked why I focused on estrangement and emotional neglect, I didn't soften the truth. "Because some families don't break loudly," I said. "They erode you quietly." The director nodded. "We need that perspective." On my first day, my nameplate read Dr. Madison Murphy. I touched it like it might disappear. No one questioned it. No one asked for explanations. It just was, and for the first time in my life, that felt enough. I didn't attend the next family holiday, or the one after that. My brother stopped calling when I refused to play the role of the difficult sibling who could be guilted back into place. My parents posted fewer photos. Smiles grew stiffer. The narrative cracked without me there to absorb the blame. One evening, I pulled the old photo box from the back of the closet, the one labeled before. I opened it slowly. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just saw the pattern clearly at last. I closed the lid not with anger, but with certainty. Some chapters don't need revisiting to be understood. So here's what I know now. Walking away didn't ruin my family. It revealed it. Changing my name didn't erase my past. It stopped it from defining my future. And choosing myself wasn't dramatic. It was overdue. If you're listening to this and wondering whether you're allowed to step out of a story that keeps shrinking you, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. You don't owe loyalty to people who only love you when it's convenient. You don't need permission to become someone new. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting for a seat and build your own damn table. And if you ever hear someone call that selfish, ask yourself who benefits from you staying small. Months later, the consequences I never anticipated started surfacing. Not from my parents directly, but from the quiet spaces where their absence used to live. Holidays came first. The first Thanksgiving without them felt strange, not painful. I expected a hollow ache, a wave of guilt, some cinematic loneliness. Instead, there was relief. No walking on eggshells, no competing for attention, no rehearsed gratitude for scraps of acknowledgement. I ate dinner with coworkers and their mismatched families, people who laughed too loud and argued over recipes, people who actually noticed when someone went quiet. I realized something unsettling. This chaos felt warmer than my childhood ever had. My parents tried again in subtler ways. My mother sent a package. No return address note, just my old nickname written on the box like a test. Inside were childhood photos, report cards, a copy of my graduation announcement folded neatly, and a handwritten letter that never once said sorry. She wrote about how hard parenting had been, how they'd sacrificed, how they didn't realize I felt left out, how families shouldn't keep score, how changing my name felt like rejection. She ended with, "We raised you better than this." I read it twice, then set it aside. Not angry, just finished. The truth was simple. They didn't miss me. They missed control. At work, I saw versions of my parents every day. Not monsters, not villains, just people who believed love was something children adapted to, not something parents adjusted. In sessions, I watched adult children twist themselves into shapes small enough to fit back into families that never expanded for them. I recognized the posture, the apologetic tone, the self-blame. Sometimes, when patients asked how I stayed so grounded while listening to stories like theirs, I wanted to tell them the truth. That grounding came from finally stepping out of one. One afternoon, a teenage girl sat across from me, arms crossed, eyes sharp with a kind of exhaustion no one her age should have. "They say I'm dramatic," she said flatly. The words hit harder than I expected. I kept my voice steady. "What happens right before they say that?" She shrugged. "I asked them to show up." I nodded slowly. "That word," I said, "is often used when someone doesn't want to deal with the impact of their choices." She stared at me like I'd unlocked something. In that moment, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. The official confirmation of my name change arrived quietly. No fanfare, just an updated license and a corrected medical registry entry. Dr. Madison Murphy. Seeing it in official systems felt different than saying it aloud. This time, it wasn't symbolic. It was permanent. My parents found out through extended family. The calls came fast after that, aunts asking what really happened, cousins whispering. The narrative my parents had relied on for years began to unravel because I was no longer there to absorb the blame and keep the peace. At Christmas, my mother tried again, a voicemail. "We left gifts on your porch. We don't understand why you're doing this to us." Not why you're hurt, not how can we fix it, just why are you doing this? I listened once. I didn't call back. I donated the gifts unopened. It wasn't cruelty. It was boundaries enforced without negotiation. Time passed. Seasons changed. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. I stopped rehearsing explanations for decisions I no longer needed to justify. People in my new city knew me only as Madison Murphy. They knew my work ethic, my humor, my quiet stubbornness. They didn't know the version of me that overachieved for approval. That version slowly faded like muscle memory you don't need anymore. One night, Ava invited me over for dinner. She poured wine and gestured toward the balcony. "You ever regret it?" she asked. I knew what she meant. I thought about it honestly. "I regret waiting so long," I said. She smiled sadly. "Most people do." The final confrontation came unexpectedly. My father showed up at my clinic unannounced. Reception called me unsure. I froze for half a second, then said, "Send him in." He looked older, smaller. His confidence faltered when he saw my nameplate. "Murphy," he said like it tasted wrong. "What do you want?" I asked, not unkindly. He launched into familiar territory, reputation, family unity, how people were talking. "You made us look heartless," he said. I didn't raise my voice. "You made that choice the morning of my graduation," I replied. He tried anger, then guilt, then nostalgia. None of it worked. Finally, he asked, "What do you want from us?" I answered without hesitation. "Nothing." That was the moment he realized there was no leverage left. After he left, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. Here, what no one tells you about walking away. The world doesn't collapse. The guilt doesn't consume you. What happens instead is quieter and more unsettling. You realize how much of your personality was shaped around being ignored, and you have to decide who you are without that gravity. I started saying no without explanations. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I stopped performing gratitude for basic decency, and slowly, something remarkable happened. People treated me better, not because I demanded it, but because I no longer accepted less. If you're still listening, maybe you're standing at the edge of a decision like this. Maybe your family hasn't skipped a graduation, but they've skipped you in 1,000 smaller ways. Maybe you keep thinking the next achievement will finally earn you love. Let me save you the years it took me to learn this. Love that has to be earned is a transaction, not a bond. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop paying into an account that's been empty your entire life. I didn't destroy my family. I survived it. And for the first time, my life feels like it actually belongs to me. If that makes me the villain in their story, I can live with that. Because in mine, I finally get to breathe. What surprised me most wasn't how much my parents changed after I left. It was how much they didn't. Without me around to smooth things over, cracks that had always existed widened. My brother became the new emotional buffer, and he hated it. He started calling more often, not to apologize, but to vent. "They're impossible," he complained one night. "They're always fighting now." I listened quietly. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, that tension had lived in my body. Now it had nowhere to hide. I didn't gloat. I didn't say, "I told you so." I just let the natural consequences unfold. That was the real revenge, stepping aside and allowing the truth to surface without interference. When you stop carrying other people's dysfunction, it doesn't disappear. It just becomes visible. The clinic invited me to lead a small support group for adults estranged from family. The first session, the room was tense. Everyone spoke carefully, like they were afraid of being judged for wanting distance. I told them, estrangement isn't the failure. It's often the boundary that comes after every other option has been exhausted. Heads lifted. Eyes softened. Someone cried quietly. I realized then that my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a mirror. One evening, I received an email from a former professor who had attended the graduation ceremony. "I looked for your parents that day," he wrote. "I couldn't find them. I want you to know the faculty noticed. We were proud of you." I reread that line, "We were proud of you," and felt something finally land where years of striving hadn't. Recognition didn't have to come from the people who raised me. It could come from those who actually saw me. I stopped introducing myself with qualifiers. Not "I'm the first doctor in my family." Just "I'm Dr. Murphy." The title didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt earned, separate from their approval. On quiet nights, I sometimes thought about my grandmother, how she would have sat in the front row, clapping too early, crying without embarrassment. Carrying her name felt like closing a circle she started. The last message from my mother arrived on a random Sunday. "We miss you," it said. No blame, no demand. I stared at it for a long time. Missing someone isn't the same as showing up for them. I typed back one sentence.